Hello, I'm Mark Siegrist filling in for Dan Jones. This week on interCHANGE, let the recall elections begin, but not all the candidates are for real as the state Supreme Court prepares to rule on the core issue. Rick Horowitz gets an intriguing phone call at home. Just how promising is Wisconsin's business climate? And now we know why Congressman Anthony Weiner canceled his trip to Milwaukee last weekend. But first, let's meet members of our panel. We're joined by newspaper columnist Joel McNally, also consultant and job creation expert Gerard Randall, and Denise Callaway, coordinator of business and community partnerships with Milwaukee Public Schools. Now, topic number one. It's official. 3 Democrats in the Wisconsin Senate face recall elections on July 19th. 6 Republicans in the upper house already knew voters would be deciding their fates a week earlier, July 12th to be exact. This week, the state Supreme Court also heard oral arguments on the very issue that prompted those initiatives, a pending law to gut the collective bargaining rights of public employees. Now comes word that GOP leaders are planning to recruit fake Democrats to run in the recalls. Forcing primary situations would lengthen the whole process, giving Republican incumbents more time to prepare for the general election. Gerard, simple question. Are we talking about simple hardball politics here, creative one-upsmanship, or are we talking about potentially poor public policy?
Well, I think for Bill and Martha sitting at home trying to figure out all of this, there's only one word that can really explain it, and that's confusing.
Okay.
The 2 different dates for the recall elections, recalls that might not happen, they might go on as scheduled, depending on whether or not these candidates that the Republicans hope to have jump into the race are still committed to doing that. I mean, there's some dissension even within the party as to whether or not this is a smart thing to do or even an effective thing to do. So there's a lot of different moving parts in this. The Supreme Court, as you pointed out, they have yet to weigh in on this, and let's say they do. And another vote doesn't have to be taken. If another vote has to be taken, that lights some additional fire under this whole process and makes the outcome just that much more iffy as a result. So I think that all of the confusion is going to leave people to have to try to sort out just what their investment in all of this is going to be, the average voter, that is. The elected officials that are involved in this, some of them are certainly going to see their tenure in the state Senate. They're going to see that come to a close, some more permanent than others. But I think at the same time, you're not going to see a permanent change in the makeup of the Senate. I think the Republicans will still maintain control. Mm-hmm. I also think that in the next cycle of elections, you're going to see people take a more intensive view of what's going on, because there will be less confusion. There'll be set election date. There'll be set candidates that won't have any of this other monkey business that's involved in it. And so you're going to have a lot of people that are just simply going to sit at home because of the confusion and try to figure out at some later date, how do they sort all of this out? The real people who are going to come out are the people who are genuinely angry at what prompted all of this to begin with. And those are the voters that are going to show up at the polls.
Denise, this notion of creating fake candidates, is it creative politics? I mean, is it, or potentially can it backfire?
Well, I think it has the potential to backfire, but, it is disingenuous. And the reality of it is, it also has the potential to waste taxpayer money. If you really only have one candidate from a party who's running, you don't need to have a primary. And it's not just for the Republicans. So those are folks who've been very vocal about it now, about the fact they're going to do this to give their colleagues more time to run. There are groups that are also calling for Democrats to do the same thing. We need to stop this foolishness. People in Wisconsin expect to be able to go to the polls and to be able to know that the person that you're voting for is someone who's actually of that particular party. And more importantly, they are who they say they are, and they're actually interested in winning and serving the people of that particular district. So yeah. I think whether it's Republicans or Democrats who are doing this, it's foolish. It's a waste of taxpayer money. It's really, quite frankly, I think, kind of a slap in the face to voters, to think that somehow you're going to say, well, is this person really a Democrat or are they really a Republican? I mean, it's a bit of nonsense and foolishness, but I will say this, it's typical of what we've seen throughout this past legislative session. So I guess perhaps something that is this bizarre shouldn't be that crazy.
There's so much going on, you can easily lose sight of what the core issue was really all about, Joel.
Oh, yeah, well, this, I think, kind of demonstrates the core issue. I mean, these recalls are about the way the Republicans have conducted themselves since they took control of the legislature and the governor's office. We had a law passed that, repeals 50 years of collective bargaining, and it was done in a meeting that was illegal, according to a judge who ruled on, whether they violated the law or not. It was done while the doors to the Capitol were locked, so the public couldn't get in. And this in a state where you're supposed to, have public meetings on public issues. Denise called it disingenuous to run fake Democrats. It's dishonest, just like passing a law in a what was supposed to be an open meeting when the doors to the Capitol are locked and you're turning people out. And someone just pointed out to me today, there's actually a law in the state of Wisconsin that it is against the law for anyone running for public office to misrepresent themselves. Is a Republican running in the Democratic primary, is that a violation? Is that illegal? One interpretation certainly could be that it was. Denise is right. A party primary is for the party to nominate their candidate. It's not for the Republicans to try to, somehow, confuse people or just hang on to power in the legislature. I think what this means is they know they're going to lose these recalls, or at least enough of these recalls that they're going to lose power in the state Senate. So they're just, extending one more month for them to do their worst in the state Senate.
Does the public see through this?
I think so.
Well, no, that gets me back to the point about it all being very, very confusing for the general public.
Intentionally.
Well, but then you got some folk who would say the recalls are disingenuous and unnecessary. And there is that faction that's out there. And so for them to say, well, we're going to use everything that we have at our disposal in order to
hang on to power.
Well, and there are some who want to grab power.
Yeah.
And grab power outside of the regular process. So in this sense, I think what you're going to see in this are a lot of people who become disaffected for the long haul. You're going to see some people who certainly are going to be disappointed enough and confused enough to simply want to beg off of this piece. And I think that's what's going to give the folk who are pushing for the recall the opportunity to flip some seats that they normally wouldn't have had an opportunity to flip. There are still, though, I think no more than 2 seats that are going to change out of Republican hands. It makes the margin slimmer. Ultimately, what it may do in the state Senate is push the body towards more of a disposition towards compromise. But I don't think you're going to see in this recall election, I don't think you're going to see a change from Republican to Democrat control. And I also don't think you're going to see a whole lot of turnout in this election.
I think you will see at least 3 seats change and possibly as many as 5.
To be fair, let's kind of talk about what the difference is, though, between the recall and these fake candidates running for a party that they're really not a part of.
Yeah.
The basic difference is that people, by signing those petitions and making their voices heard, indicated that they wanted to see these recalls take place. That is something that people have genuinely said that they want. So, I do think it's very different. It's not. Some might argue that it's a political tack, but it's also the voice of people being heard.
And it's the reason for recalls is these Republicans are doing things in public office they did not campaign on. Scott Walker did not campaign that he was going to eliminate public, employee bargaining. In fact, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, which has been very supportive of Scott Walker, says the reason he didn't run on that is he would not have been elected.
Interesting perspective. Our colleague Rick Horowitz has been following the recall frenzy as well. To be honest now, Rick can be rather cynical at times, but a recent conversation that he had put him on full alert, and he's even asking viewers for some help right now.
Okay, so maybe I'm not working on all cylinders when I get a phone call right after a nap, but I know what I heard. Here, let me start from the beginning, and then I'll be asking you for a little help, okay? Okay, here goes. The phone rings. This is a few days ago. I'm at home. I pick it up. It's a woman's voice at the other end. If I had to guess, I'd say it was an African-American woman's voice. She's looking for Richard Horowitz, she says, which means she's got my name from some list. And she's doing a survey, she says, a few questions about the recall elections that are coming up. Now, I don't participate in phone surveys. I figure I've already got other ways of getting my opinions out there. Anyway, I politely tell her that I'll have to pass. Again, this is before I ever hear the questions. I wish her good luck with her other calls. She thanks me and I hang up. I hang up 1 second before I realize what she said at the very start of the call. She didn't just say she was calling about the recall elections. She said she was calling about the recall elections on August 12th. Except that the recall elections, the one against the 6 Republicans, are scheduled for July 12th, not August, July. So now I'm trying to decide, was it an honest mistake or something else? That's where I need your help. Have any of you received a similar call lately? And did your caller say July or August? I'd like to know about it. Here's my email address on the screen for you, rickhorrow@execpc.com. Just drop me a note. Now, if you stayed on the call long enough to hear what the questions were, I'd be interested in those too, but mostly I want to know about the date they mentioned. Was it July 12 or August 12? Now, under normal circumstances, I'd probably be inclined to dismiss it as an honest mistake. Of course, under normal circumstances, one of the two parties wouldn't be trying to make it harder for certain people to vote to begin with. Under normal circumstances, one of the parties wouldn't be trying to field an entire roster of fake candidates just to muddy the waters and gin up an extra round of elections. So yeah, I'm a little suspicious. Can you blame me? Somebody may be trying to catch us all napping.
Thanks, Rick. Your feedback will be most interesting, so we really encourage you to help Rick to advance the story. Thank you so much in advance. You know, state chief executives think Wisconsin's business climate is moving in the right direction. New research by the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce says business leaders are feeling a lot more confident about Madison-based initiatives right now and their potential impact on future job growth and wage increases. This raises a simple question. If the state's top business and manufacturing leaders are feeling optimistic about the immediate future, should the average worker or those still seeking work feel likewise? Joel?
Is this question, do children like Santa Claus? I don't know. The Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce elected Scott Walker, and guess what? You know, ever since he's been in office, he's killing collective bargaining, and he's giving billions of dollars in tax cuts to business leaders and the wealthiest people in this state. I saw a figure today that just what's included in the budget so far would give $2.3 billion in tax cuts and benefits to, you know, businessmen and the wealthiest people in this state. Yeah, I imagine they enjoy their $2.3 billion. At the same time, Scott Walker, who's against raising taxes on poor people, or is against raising taxes on rich people, is raising taxes on poor people. He's cutting tax credits for the earned income tax credit that goes to the poorest people in the state. He's gutting public education and you know, local government employment, so there'll be more people laid off there. I don't know why working people would be happy that the richest people in this state are happy. As far as I know, they're going to take the money and run. If they would create some jobs, and we haven't seen any evidence of that yet, if they would create some jobs, that's the theory. You give them as much money as they can possibly carry in bushel baskets, and some of that will somehow trickle down to working people. I think we ought to give it to the working people by creating some employment.
But to play the devil's advocate, if that research came back where chief executives across the state said, no, you know, the next 12 months do not look promising at all, we can't do any more hiring, and we can't adjust wages, wouldn't you feel worse?
Everybody is counting on this economy improving as a result of President Barack Obama pulling this country out of the worst economic crisis it's ever been in. The Republicans so far have been voting against that, been voting against creating jobs. He's trying to do anything he can to create jobs. So Scott Walker is counting on Barack Obama succeeding.
Denise, what do you think?
Well, I think optimistically, I would like to hope that they're right, because The business climate is actually improving in Wisconsin. That's good news for everybody. There are going to be more jobs. So, but, you know, I mean, they should feel optimistic with the legislation that's been passed, that's been very pro-business. So now let's see. This, you know, this is all happening. Let's see how it all shakes out, and if it means that we're going to really have more jobs. You know, when I talk to people, I don't find the general person on the street or sitting in your own living room or in your backyard having a beer with you being more optimistic about the state of Wisconsin's economy. Too many people are still unemployed. Too many people, you know, and I know it's bad to talk about public sector workers like they actually are, but they are. Too many people are feeling concerns about their future. And even if, you know, there are many income households in Wisconsin where you have one person who is working for either state government or local government, and people are very concerned about the future. There's a sense of uncertainty in the general population that I think offsets that feeling of optimism that businesses have. So they're optimistic. Let's see what optimism looks like when it's in play, and if it makes a difference to people throughout the state who are very nervous and very concerned about their future.
This is your niche, my friend. Jobs and the economy. Is the state on the right track right now?
I think so. This state had a reputation for a number of years for having an overburdening regulatory environment. We had a very bad reputation for that. We ranked in the bottom 40 of the 50 states because of that perception. We also had
the bottom 40 out of 50 states. We weren't in the top 10.
You mean in terms of
the bottom 40 of 50 states?
Of 50, well, of the 50 states, our reputation for having an overburdening regulatory environment for those who were at the top having the least burden, and those at the bottom having the greatest burden. Okay. How's that?
All right.
And we also had a reputation for being a state that overtaxes business. All of that takes capital out of the ability of business to create more jobs, or certainly to create more product that would then lead to more job creation. So what this governor has done has been to lead a legislature that would remove some of those regulations, reduce some of those taxes, go out and speak forcefully about a new kind of receptivity to government not getting in the way of business creating jobs, and in fact, just the reverse. What can we do to help you promote job creation? The people that he's put in his administration, they've all been tasked with that responsibility. The legislature has gone along with that. And I think that is what has turned around the perception, certainly of businesses that are already headquartered here, to do that. We saw some of these things, though, that certainly indicated we were poised just to be able to do that. We've got businesses like Johnson Controls, GE, a host of other manufacturing businesses that were just waiting on the brink to see what kind of regulatory environment there would be under this new governor's leadership.
Now they know.
And now they know, and they are certainly prepared to make the commitment to move forward with some expansion.
So let me ask you this: how quickly then do we have to see improvement before?
Well, you know what? Now that's the interesting thing, because nationally, and there are certainly people that are disheartened at the pace that the turnaround has taken place. And I think what you're going to see, it happen in certain states a lot faster than it happens in the broader arena, in the broader economic arena. There are some states that had already put an infrastructure in place, like Texas, where you can see a very aggressive governor, a lot of supports that are available to business, and they've also got an attractive climate for businesses that want to relocate down there, and businesses that frankly want to take advantage of inexpensive labor.
If it doesn't,
as bad as Scott Walker is, I'd still rather live in Wisconsin than Texas. Thank you.
Well, so would I.
If it doesn't move around fast enough, is it Barack Obama's fault, or is it Scott Walker's fault in the eyes of the action of the average Wisconsin worker?
I think in the eyes of the worker, it's Barack Obama's fault and Scott Walker's fault.
Both.
They both have promised jobs. I can see the president trying to create jobs, I see Republicans voting against job creation, and I think that's un-American.
What is it like in your neighborhood? How many of your neighbors are still out of work? How many of your neighbors are still struggling financially?
My neighbors are students, and they don't expect to get work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think though that's an important thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, as we take a look, and we talked a little bit about this on the show before, as we take a look at what the future looks like for kids who are coming out of college, who are looking for jobs. The issue and problem is not just that they can't find jobs. When they are able to find jobs, they're at much lower wages, which then sets them up for a lifetime of not being able to reach the financial goals that they had expected and set for themselves. This is a generation of kids, these kids who are coming out of college now, who are saying they expect that they're going to be worse off than their parents.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an issue of when you ask the question, you know, how long can this take or how long should it take? If this is actually designed to create jobs, we need to start creating jobs now.
There's a mismatch right now between the jobs that are available, which tend to be high-skilled, high-wage kinds of positions, and those people who have the skills available to match those jobs. Most of the people who are currently out of the work network are people who don't possess the skills that match up to those jobs. And yet they have expectations of getting high wages, extraordinarily high benefits. All those kinds of things just don't work with the match.
Which is all the
of
more
skills
reason
that
not
they
to
have.
cut funding for education.
Well, I've never been in favor of cutting education and cutting certainly the job training funds that are available to help create that match between those who are looking for jobs and those jobs that are available.
And when you protest like that, what do your Republican colleagues tell you? What is their response to it?
Well, there are some that are sympathetic, but you do have quite a few of them that don't understand even that economic
And
principle.
that angers you.
And that has to
job
change.
developer.
That's right.
Yeah. Congressman Anthony Weiner says he lied. The married popular Democrat from New York now says he deceived the public about the nature of his online and social media relationships with other women. It turns out they really were inappropriate. Meanwhile, the national media is all over this story, and Congressman Weiner's political future is hanging by a thread. And, you know, there's a lot of overkill with the story.
Yeah.
But rightly so, Denise?
Well, you know, we were just talking a couple of weeks ago about former Governor Schwarzenegger. I don't know what it is about men in politics.
Or men.
I know. I mean, well, men in politics for sure. You know, is part of the oath that men will now take. Does there have to be a little addition there saying, and I promise not to do anything stupid that involves taking down my pants? I don't know, but I mean, shirt or whatever. Yeah, that we've had that too, but it seems taking off the pants is what's gotten people in the most trouble. It is just absolutely disheartening, but I think it's a sign. And you know, when I heard this on the way over to the show about the fact that we have people who are politicians, and Anthony Weiner is probably a great example of this, who may be very passionate, they're really good at doing sound bites and being on TV shows, but they don't do much in terms of legislation. We have politicians who've now become famous for being politicians, not necessarily for being good legislators. So, you know, with this sense of celebrity, people just apparently, when that happens, just kind of lose a little bit of control over being able to understand the difference between right and wrong. You know, and I think that his political future, I believe, should be over. And I like Anthony Weiner. I think he's a very passionate person, very passionate on liberal causes. But, you know, I think he should lose his job.
Well,
because he lied.
Sure.
Not necessarily because of what he did, but because he lied about it.
Is that the greater sin than his foolishness on?
The foolishness is between him and his poor wife.
Yeah.
But the fact that you lied about it, you got your buddies on the Hill to say, this is terrible, he was hacked, this is terrible, don't follow him around, and then he makes this very tearful confession. It's like Jimmy Swaggart from
It amazes me how, you know, he knew he's going to have to reverse himself 24 hours after he was so adamant about being innocent. I mean, why would he even set himself up like that, Joel?
It's stupid. He's stupid. He's a creep, I would say. But I do have to say this. This isn't exactly a defense. But this has to be the only political sex scandal in history without any sex.
Right.
And nothing illegal happened. There was a poll out today saying the people in his district, majority of them, still think he should run for office and would vote for him. And it's partly because of what Denise said. He was a passionate advocate for them. Most people's sex lives would not be very pretty put out in public,
right.
And by the media. And frankly, you know, thinking about the sex lives of my politicians is like thinking about the sex lives of parents. You don't want to think about it. And you shouldn't have to think about it. But I will say...
I didn't until you mentioned it.
I will say that this story, the fact that the media is talking about that, and Denise makes the point about lying, that was the worst sin. Politicians also lie all the time. And truthfully, there are some horrible lies going on in politics right now, one involving Medicare and Paul Ryan. And he lies about Medicare every time he says he's not going to end it, because he is. Right. He's going to replace it with something that isn't Medicare.
Joel, you know, I love you. But, you know, I think when you are so passionate in defending yourself, and then you have to turn around 48 hours later and say, I mean, it's just it shows such a lack of judgment that I think, you know, you lie so well that, you know,
he lied to avoid embarrassment. I don't know how I ever thought he was going to avoid it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this chat. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a great weekend. Dan Jones will be back again next week. Thank you for being with us.